The rain pounded against my skin, each drop feeling like tiny needles piercing through the thin fabric of my waitress uniform. I couldn't remember how long I'd been walking, minutes or hours. It all blurred together as my fever climbed higher. The neon lights of the downtown district reflected in the puddles around me, distorting and wavering like my consciousness. Just a few more blocks, I whispered to myself, my voice drowned out by thunder that rattled the windows of closed shops. Just make it home, Nia. My apartment wasn't much. A studio above a laundromat with perpetually flickering lights and a shower that ran cold more often than not. But it was mine. Or it would be until the end of the month when rent was due and my bank account would once again fail to meet the demand. I stumbled, my worn-out sneakers slipping on the wet pavement. The world tilted sideways, and I grabbed onto a nearby street lamp, its cold metal shocking against my burning skin. The restaurant manager's words echoed in my mind. Don't come back until you're not contagious. We can't afford to have customers getting sick. What he meant was, don't come back until you're not contagious. And we don't have to pay you sick leave. 3 days without work meant 3 days without pay, and 3 days without pay meant I couldn't afford the antibiotics the clinic had prescribed for my infection. A car splashed through a puddle near the curb, drenching my legs with dirty water. I didn't even have the energy to curse. My vision blurred, dark spots dancing at the edges of my sight. The rain had soaked through everything, my clothes, my hair, my bones. I couldn't remember ever feeling this cold. I blinked hard, trying to focus on the crosswalk ahead. That's when I noticed it. A sleek black car was idling at the intersection, its engine a low purr that somehow cut through the storm's chaos. The windows were tinted so dark they looked like pools of ink reflecting nothing but more darkness. Something about it made me pause. In this neighborhood, a car like that meant one thing, trouble. I turned down a side street, my legs shaking with each step. My breath came in short, painful gasps. The fever was getting worse. Behind me, I heard the gentle rumble of an engine. The black car had turned onto the same street. Panic shot through me like electricity, momentarily clearing the fog in my head. I quickened my pace, each step sending jolts of pain through my body. The car kept pace, moving slowly, like a predator stalking wounded prey. I tried to run, but my body betrayed me. The world tilted again, this time refusing to right itself. The wet pavement rushed up to meet me, and I felt my knees buckle. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was the black car stopping beside me, its door opening like the mouth of some great beast. Warmth. That was the first sensation that registered when consciousness returned. Warmth and the smell of expensive leather mixed with a crisp, clean scent. Something soft cradled my body, and the gentle hum of an engine vibrated beneath me. I forced my eyes open, panic immediately flooding my system. I wasn't on the street anymore. I was in a car. The black car stretched across a back seat, so spacious it could have fit my entire apartment's furniture. You're safe now. The voice came from my right, deep, smooth, with a timbre that commanded attention. I turned my head, wincing at the pain that shot through my temples, and saw him. He sat with one leg crossed over the other, his posture relaxed, yet somehow still commanding every molecule of air in the vehicle. A tailored black Mafia suit hugged his broad shoulders, the fabric so fine it seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. Beneath the jacket, he wore a pristine white collared shirt, open just enough at the neck to hint at a muscular chest. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, a strong jawline, and eyes so dark they reminded me of obsidian. He was undeniably handsome, with an elegance that felt dangerous. Those dark eyes were fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Who? My voice came out as a rasp. I tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness forced me back down. Don't move, he said, uncrossing his legs and leaning slightly toward me. You have a high fever. My doctor is waiting for us. His doctor. Not a doctor, his doctor. As if he owned the medical professional the same way he owned this car, with its buttersoft leather seats and privacy partition separating us from the driver. I don't need a doctor. I lied, struggling to sit up again. I need to go home. His mouth, full lips that contrasted with the hardness of his other features, curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. In this condition, you collapsed on the street. If I hadn't been there, he let the sentence hang, unfinished, but clear in its implication. Fear and gratitude warred within me. Thank you for helping me, but I need to go. Nia Okeke, 22 years old, waitress at Bellini's. Lives alone in an apartment on Westmore Street. No family in the city. He recited these facts about my life as casually as someone might read a weather report. Ice replaced the fever in my veins. How do you know my name? His eyes never left mine. I make it my business to know everything that happens in my territory.
Territory.
Not neighborhood or district. Territory. That's when recognition clicked into place. The car, the sharp black Mafia suit, the air of absolute authority that seemed to bend reality around him. Stories whispered by kitchen staff during late shifts at Bellini's came rushing back. Warnings about certain tables, certain customers, and the mysterious organization that ran half the businesses in the city. This wasn't just a rich businessman. This was Kong Jae-sun, the head of the Kong Syndicate, the Korean Mafia boss. Mr. Kong, I whispered, the name feeling dangerous on my tongue. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, perhaps, that I recognized him, or pleasure that I knew who he was. Either way, it vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Call me Jae-sun, he said, his voice softening a fraction. He reached out, and I flinched involuntarily. He paused, then continued more slowly, placing the back of his hand against my forehead. His skin was cool against my burning face. Your fever is getting worse. We'll be at my home soon. Your home? Alarm shot through me. No, I need to go to my apartment, please. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Your apartment has no heat, no food in the refrigerator, and is currently being watched by people who mean you harm. My mind reeled, trying to process his words through the fog of fever. People who what? Why would anyone be watching my apartment? Instead of answering, Jae-sun pressed a button on the console beside him. A small compartment opened, revealing a bottle of water and some pills. Take these. They'll help with the fever until we arrive. I stared at the pills suspiciously. I don't take things from strangers. A dark chuckle escaped him, the sound sending an unexpected shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with my illness. Nia, he said, my name sounding different in his mouth, almost like a possession. If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't need to drug you. The worst part was I believed him. With shaking hands, I took the pills and the water bottle. The cool liquid was heaven against my parched throat, and I found myself drinking half the bottle in desperate gulps. Jae-sun watched me, his gaze never wavering. There was something in the way he looked at me, like I was something precious and breakable, something he'd been searching for. Why are you helping me? I asked after swallowing the pills, which tasted like ordinary fever reducers. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes tracing over my face, as if memorizing every detail of my dark skin. Finally, he said, because you're mine to protect. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning I couldn't fully grasp. Mine, the possessiveness in that single word should have terrified me more than it did. I don't belong to anyone, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Something that might have been respect flashed in his eyes, followed quickly by amusement. Not yet. Before I could respond, the car slowed and turned. I pushed myself up enough to see out the window. We were passing through large iron gates that opened automatically, revealing a long driveway flanked by perfectly manicured gardens. At the end stood what could only be described as a mansion, a sprawling structure of stone and glass lit up against the night sky like something from a fairy tale or a nightmare. Welcome to my home, Jae-sun said as the car came to a stop at the front entrance where two men in dark suits stood waiting, seemingly unbothered by the rain that had slowed to a drizzle. Panic rose in my chest. I can't stay here. I don't know you. I need to go home. Nia, the way he said my name made me freeze. The man your father stole from, the man whose money paid for your college education before you dropped out, has discovered you're in the city. He sent people to watch your apartment tonight. If you go back there, you will not survive until morning. The world seemed to stop. My father, Marcus, had been gone for years, disappearing after my mother died, occasionally sending money that I'd used for tuition. Money I'd assumed came from his gambling wins. I'd never questioned where it came from. Not until the payment stopped, and I had to drop out. "How do you know about my father?" I whispered. Jason's eyes softened fractionally, the only indication that he recognized the shock and fear coursing through me. "Because the man he stole from was an associate of my syndicate. And because I've been watching you for much longer than you realize, Nia." The car door opened from the outside. Rain-scented air rushed in along with the imposing figure of a man who could only be a bodyguard. "Sir," the man said, his eyes never looking directly at Jason. "The doctor is waiting inside." Jason nodded, then turned back to me. "You have two choices. Come inside willingly where you'll be safe, treated, and we can discuss your situation. Or I can have my men carry you inside, and we'll have that discussion once you're feeling better." He delivered this ultimatum calmly, as if both options were perfectly reasonable, as if this were a normal negotiation and not my life spinning completely out of control. I looked from the Korean Mafia boss to the open door, to the grand house beyond. Every instinct screamed that walking into that house would change everything. That once I crossed that threshold, I'd be stepping into a world I might never escape. But the alternative was returning to an apartment where people apparently waited to kill me over something my father had done. "I'll come inside," I said finally, my voice barely audible. "But I'm leaving as soon as I'm better." Something like satisfaction flickered across Jason's perfect features. "Of course," he agreed, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it for a second. As I moved to exit the car, another wave of dizziness washed over me. I swayed, and suddenly Jason's arms were around me, strong, secure, and far too intimate. He lifted me as if I weighed nothing, cradling me against the white fabric of his shirt. The scent of him enveloped me, sandalwood, rain, and something darker underneath. Something dangerous. "I can walk," I protested weakly, even as my head fell against his shoulder, my body betraying me again. "I know you can," he murmured, his lips close to my ear. "But you don't have to anymore. I've got you now." As he carried me toward the grand entrance of his mansion, past the stone-faced guards who kept their eyes averted, I couldn't help but feel like I was being carried not into safety, but into a beautiful cage. And the most terrifying part was the small voice inside me that whispered, perhaps being his captive wouldn't be so terrible after all. I dreamed of chains made of silk and gold, beautiful but unbreakable, wrapping around my wrists and ankles. In the dream, I couldn't tell if I was struggling against them or surrendering to their embrace. A voice called my name from the darkness. My father's voice, then my mother's, then one I didn't recognize but somehow knew belonged to Jason. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, draped with sheer white curtains that billowed in a gentle breeze. For one disorienting moment, I thought I might be dead. The room was too beautiful, too pristine to be real. The bed beneath me was enormous, with sheets so soft they felt like clouds against my skin. I ran my hand over the crisp, white duvet, marveling at its plushness. My fever had broken. The pounding in my head had subsided to a dull ache, and the bone-deep chill had been replaced by comfortable warmth. I was wearing silk pajamas that definitely weren't mine, pale lavender, perfectly fitted, as if they had been made for me. The thought of someone changing my clothes while I was unconscious sent a flush of embarrassment through me. I pushed myself up to a sitting position and took stock of my surroundings. The bedroom was larger than my entire apartment, decorated in minimalist shades of cream and charcoal. A sitting area with two elegant armchairs faced a modern fireplace. One wall was entirely glass, revealing a breathtaking view of manicured gardens, and beyond them, the glittering skyline of the city. On the nightstand beside the bed sat a glass of water, 2 pills, and a handwritten note. I picked it up, surprised by the elegant, sharp handwriting. "Take these when you wake. The doctor will return at noon to check on you. Do not leave the room until I come for you."
Yeah.
The commanding tone of the note sent a flutter of indignation through me. Who was he to order me around? Yet, even as I thought it, I found myself reaching for the pills and water, swallowing them obediently. Only after I'd taken them did I realize how foolish that was. They could have been anything. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, relieved to find my strength mostly returned. My waitress uniform was nowhere to be seen. Instead, there was a robe draped over a nearby chair, silk, matching the pajamas. I put it on and padded barefoot across the plush carpet to try the door. Locked, of course.
I was a prisoner then.
A very comfortable one, but a prisoner nonetheless. I returned to the windows, which opened onto a small balcony. Stepping outside, I was immediately struck by the contrast between this place and my life. From here, I could see perfectly trimmed hedges, a large swimming pool with water so blue it hurt to look at, and gardens bursting with colorful flowers. Several men in dark suits patrolled the grounds, their stances alert and watchful.
Guards.
Or perhaps more accurately, soldiers of the Korean Mafia boss. Looking at the drop from the balcony to the ground below, I estimated it to be about 20 feet. Not survivable without serious injury. Even if I could somehow make it down, those guards would spot me instantly. I went back inside, frustration building in my chest. What did Jae-sun want with me? What had my father done that was so terrible it had put me in danger years later? The room had another door, which opened into a luxurious bathroom with a shower big enough for 5 people and a soaking tub that looked like it belonged in a spa. I stared at my reflection in the enormous mirror. My deep brown skin looked smooth, my face no longer feverish, though tired. My dark, curly hair was tangled and falling past my shoulders. My eyes, usually bright, seemed wary. Despite everything, I decided to shower if only to give myself time to think. When I emerged, wrapped in a towel, I found that the bedroom door was now open and Jae-sun was there, sitting in one of the armchairs by the fireplace. I froze, one hand clutching the towel more tightly around me. He looked even more imposing in daylight. His dark hair was immaculately styled, his jaw freshly shaven. He wore another perfectly tailored black Mafia suit, this one with a subtle texture and that signature white collared shirt. He was reading something on a tablet, his long fingers occasionally swiping across the screen. He looked up as I entered, his dark eyes taking in every inch of me. I felt naked despite the towel, exposed in a way that went beyond physical. "You're feeling better?" he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, acutely aware of the water droplets trailing down my neck and shoulders.
Yes.
"Thank you for helping me." His eyes lingered on a droplet making its way toward my collarbone.
Get dressed.
"There are clothes in the closet. Then we'll talk." With that, he returned his attention to the tablet, dismissing me as casually as if I were a servant. Anger flared in my chest, hot and sudden. You know, most kidnappers aren't so rude to their victims. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. For an instant, I saw something dangerous flash across his face, a reminder that beneath the polished exterior was a man accustomed to violence. Kidnapped. He set the tablet aside and stood, his movements fluid and controlled. "Is that what you think this is?" He took a step toward me, and I instinctively backed away. My retreat seemed to displease him. His jaw tightened. "I saved your life," he said, his voice low and measured. "If I hadn't been watching you, you would have died on that street, either from your fever or from the men who were following you. And now I'm locked in a room in your house, wearing clothes that aren't mine, being told what to do." I raised my chin, refusing to be intimidated despite the hammering of my heart. "What would you call it?" A smile curved his lips, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Protection. I didn't ask for your protection. You didn't have to." He moved closer, and this time I held my ground. "Some things are inevitable, Nia. Some connections can't be ignored or denied." We were less than a foot apart now. I could smell his cologne, that same intoxicating blend of sandalwood and rain. Up close, I could see that his eyes weren't solid black as I'd first thought, but a very dark brown with flecks of gold near the pupil. "What connection?" I asked, my voice embarrassingly breathless. "I didn't know you until yesterday. I didn't even know you knew I existed." "I've known about you for 2 years," he said, the casual admission stunning me into silence. "Since the day you started working at Bellini's. Since the day I realized who you were." "And who am I?" The question came out as barely more than a whisper. He raised a hand, and I flinched, expecting, I wasn't sure what. But all he did was brush a wet curl of hair back from my face, his fingers lingering against my cheek. You're the daughter of Marcus, the man who betrayed my syndicate and stole millions. You're the woman who's been using that stolen money while living like a pauper. And you're the only leverage I have to draw your father out of hiding. The floor seemed to drop from beneath my feet. Leverage, I repeated numbly. His hand fell away from my face.
Get dressed.
There's much to discuss. He turned and walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. The closet is through there. Everything should fit. I'll have breakfast sent up. Join me on the terrace in 30 minutes. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click. This time I heard no lock engage, but I knew I was no less trapped than before. I moved woodenly to the closet door. My father had stolen from the Korean Mafia boss. The money he'd sent me for college, money I'd used without question, had been stolen from dangerous criminals. The closet was a room unto itself. Racks of clothing lined the walls. Dresses, blouses, skirts, jeans, all still with tags attached. A quick glance confirmed my suspicion. Everything was exactly my size. I chose the simplest outfit I could find. Jeans, a soft gray sweater, and ankle boots. Everything fit perfectly, of course. The intimacy of it made me shudder. When I emerged, I found a tray of food waiting. I ate quickly, trying to gather my thoughts. If Jae-sun was telling the truth, leaving might actually be more dangerous than staying. But remaining here meant placing myself at the mercy of a Korean mafia boss who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. I made my way downstairs. The house was eerily quiet, though I sensed I wasn't alone. Eyes watched from discreet corners, cameras, guards, or both. A uniformed maid appeared and led me to a set of French doors that opened onto a stone terrace overlooking the gardens. Jae-sun sat at a glass table, a cup of coffee in front of him. He stood as I reached the table, an oddly gentlemanly gesture. Please sit. I took the chair opposite him, hyper-aware of the guards positioned around the terrace. You said my father stole from your family. Jae-sun sat down, his expression hardening. 5 years ago, your father worked as an accountant for several businesses owned by my syndicate. He used his position to embezzle just over $10 million before disappearing. That's impossible. My father was just a gambling addict who abandoned me. Your father, Marcus, was one of the most skilled financial criminals on the East Coast. The gambling was a cover. Jae-sun's voice was matter-of-fact. When he disappeared, a rival faction, the Volkovs, held my predecessor responsible for the loss. It led to complications. And now Volkov's men are looking for me? I asked, pieces falling into place. To use you to get to your father. Just like I am, his jaw tightened. There's a difference. Volkov will torture and kill you. I'm offering you protection in exchange for cooperation. Work with me, Nia. Help me find your father before Volkov does. And what happens to my father if I help you? I asked. He pays for what he's done. You'll kill him. That depends on him, Jae-sun said. If he returns what he stole and provides certain information we need, he might survive. If not, he shrugged one broad shoulder. And if I refuse, then I can't protect you from Volkov. It's that simple. I stood abruptly. I need time to think. Of course. You have until tomorrow morning, he stood, towering over me in his black mafia suit. In the meantime, you're free to explore the house and grounds, but don't attempt to leave. My men have orders to stop you. And if Volkov's men find me here, they won't, he stepped closer. Because anyone who tries to take what's mine doesn't live long enough to regret it. There was that word again.
Mine.
I'm not yours, I said, the words coming out with more force than intended. I'm not a possession or a bargaining chip. I'm a person. To my surprise, he laughed. It was a rich, genuine sound. Brave little Nia, he said, reaching out to tuck a curl behind my ear. Most people wouldn't dare speak to a mafia boss that way. I'm not most people. No, he agreed, his voice dropping. You're not. That's precisely why you're here. By late afternoon, I'd made my way to a small courtyard garden nestled between two wings of the house. I sat on a stone bench, closing my eyes and tilting my face toward the sun. It was my mother's favorite place. I startled at the sound of Jae-sun's voice. He stood at the entrance to the courtyard, his suit jacket gone, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up to expose strong forearms. In this more casual state, he looked younger. "Your mother?"
I asked.
"She designed this courtyard." She said it reminded her of her home in Busan. He ran his fingers through the fountain water. "She lives in Korea now. She calls every Sunday, asks when I'll settle down, give her grandchildren." The mundane details seemed so at odds with the dangerous world he inhabited. "What do you tell her?" A faint smile curved his lips. "That I'm waiting for the right woman. Someone strong enough to survive in our world, but gentle enough to remind me of my humanity." He looked at me with an intensity that made my heart race. "Have you made your decision?" "I haven't even had a full day to think," I protested. "But you've been thinking about it all day," he countered, moving closer. "I can see it in your eyes. You've been planning, calculating, looking for a way out. Can you blame me?" "No," he said honestly. "In your position, I'd do the same. I'd align myself with the devil I could see rather than the one lurking in the shadows. So, I should trust you because you're honest about your intentions to use me?" "You should trust me," he said, brushing his knuckles against my cheek, "because despite what you think, using you is not my only intention." "Then what are your other intentions, Mr. Kong?" His eyes darkened. "I think you already know." Before I could respond, a man in a dark suit appeared.
"Sir."
"You have a call." "From Moscow." Jason's demeanor hardened instantly. "I'll take it in my office," he turned back to me.
"Dinner."
7 o'clock. "I've had clothes laid out for you." The dress was blood red, floor length, with a slit that reached mid-thigh. It looked stunning against my dark skin. At precisely 7, a guard escorted me to the dining room. Jason stood at the head of a long table, a glass of red wine in his hand. He was back in a pristine black Mafia suit, looking like sin personified. When he saw me, he went absolutely still. "Nia," he said, his voice deeper than usual. "You look breathtaking." He guided me to my seat. "Is this where you tell me your plans for my father?" I asked, accepting a glass of wine.
"No."
"This is where I get to know the woman behind the file I've studied for 2 years. The woman who worked 3 jobs to stay in school. The woman who splashed wine on a customer who touched her." I froze. "You saw that?" "I was there. You stood there, facing down a man twice your size with such fierce dignity. That night I had you investigated. I wanted to know who you were. So, you've been watching me because I stood up to a customer?" "I've watched you struggle, adapt, survive," he said, leaning forward. "I've seen your strength, your compassion, your fire. Why would a man like me want those qualities?" "You're not no one to me, Nia. I'm a waitress. You're a Korean mafia boss. Status means nothing to me. Loyalty means everything." He took a sip of wine. "I want to make you mine in every way that matters." "You're holding me captive," I reminded him. "That's not exactly the foundation for romance." "Sometimes," he said softly, "life doesn't give us perfect beginnings." Suddenly, the doors burst open. A guard rushed in, face tight. "Sir, we have a situation. Perimeter breach." 3 men. Volkov's operatives. Jason stood in one fluid motion, the charming dinner companion vanishing, replaced by the ruthless leader. "Go with the guard. He'll take you to the safe room. No one gets to her. No 1 inch." I was ushered into a hidden room behind a bookcase. It had monitors showing the house. I watched as Jason moved across the foyer on the screen, surrounded by his men. He had removed his jacket, sleeves rolled up, revealing intricate tattoos running down his arms, symbols of his rank in the syndicate. He held a gun with terrifying confidence. "He cares for you," the guard beside me said, watching the screen. "I haven't seen the boss like this before. He will destroy them." I watched as Jason and his men intercepted the intruders in the garden. It was efficient, brutal, and over in moments. This was the real Kong Jason, a man of violence. And yet, knowing that violence was shielding me, I couldn't deny the pull I felt. Hours later, the safe room door opened. Jason entered. He had changed his shirt, but the tension remained in his jaw. "Are you all right?" he asked, scanning me for injuries.
"I've fine."
"Are they?" "Taken care of," he said coldly. He poured himself a drink. "Volkov knows about my interest in you. He thinks you're a weakness." "Am I?" He looked at me, eyes blazing. You're dangerous to me, Nia. But I will not let them touch you. You are under my protection now, permanently. And if I don't want it, then I would let you go, he said, the words costing him. But I would still protect you, whether you wanted it or not. He stepped closer, invading my space. But let me tell you what I want. I want you safe. I want you by my side. I want to wake up to your fire every day. You don't even know if I'll help you find my father. This isn't about your father anymore. His hand slid to the nape of my neck. It hasn't been for a long time. And then he was kissing me, his lips claiming mine with a hunger that stole the breath from my lungs. I should have pushed him away. He was a criminal, a killer. But in his arms, I felt more alive than I ever had. I grabbed the lapels of his black suit, pulling him closer. Nia, he breathed against my lips. Tell me to stop. I can't, I whispered. He lifted me effortlessly, pressing me against the wall. Once I make you mine, I will never let you go. I pulled back slightly, breathless. If I help you find him, promise me you'll try to bring him in alive. You have my word, the Korean Mafia boss said solemnly. And afterwards, you have a choice. A real choice about us. Then I'll help you, I said. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. He kissed me again, possessive and searing. Whatever happened tomorrow, I would face it with Kong Jae-sun. The rain had brought me to his door, but it was the fire between us that would make me stay. You're safe now, he whispered against my skin, and for the first time, I believed him.